Hey everyone, and welcome to today's deep dive. You know how sometimes you just want to walk into a room and everyone's like, whoa, there they are. Well, today we're diving into English pronunciation tips for beginners to help equip you with all the tools, to project that confidence when you speak. Because when you sound good, you feel good, right?
Totally. And it's amazing how much pronunciation impacts. Like, if you think about it, you can have the most brilliant ideas. But if people are struggling to understand you, your ideas kind of get lost. So this deep dive is all about making sure you know your message is heard loud and clear.
Awesome. So let's dive in.
Mm.
This guide starts off with a point I think a lot of us, can probably relate to. English spelling.
Yeah.
It can be a nightmare. Why doesn't enough sound like it's spelled Enough? It's like a secret code.
Yeah, so instead of getting caught up in the chaos of spelling, the guide suggests we shift our focus to the sounds of words. It's like what learning a new song. You don't just stare at the sheet music, you listen to how it's supposed to sound. So language is the same way.
Right. That's a great analogy. So instead of getting tongue-tied, decipher all those silent letters, what does the guide suggest we do?
Well, it suggests we use the awesome tools
Mhm.
that we have available these days. So online dictionaries and pronunciation apps. Hearing a word spoken out loud, it can just be a game changer, especially for those tricky ones that don't make sense on paper.
For sure, for sure. It's like that light bulb moment when you finally hear it pronounced correctly. You're like, ooh, that's how you say that.
Oh.
So we're training our ears, not just our eyes.
Mm-hmm.
What's next on our pronunciation journey?
Well, the guide goes into something, it seems really basic, but can be kind of tricky. Mastering common words. Think hello, thank you, even sorry.
Wait, even sorry can be tricky. How so?
Have you noticed that? Some people say sorry like sorry, while others say sorry. It all comes down to regional accents. And the guide makes a great point about embracing that diversity.
Yeah.
There's no one right way to pronounce everything, but as long as you're clear.
Right. Yeah, I love that. It's about understanding that different accents exist,
Yeah.
but still making sure that your message is coming across. So we're
Yep.
not erasing our individuality. We're just kind of fine-tuning things. Now, what about those super long words? You know the ones that make you want to hide under the table?
Ah, yes, the tongue twisters.
Yeah.
So for those, the guide has this great technique called syllabic breakdown. It's like taking this giant scary monster and turning it into manageable pieces.
Okay, give us an example. I'm all about making things less scary.
Okay, so imagine you're facing the word communication. Kind of intimidating, right? But if you break it down syllable by syllable, so communication, suddenly it's not so daunting.
Right. I mean, think about a word that usually trips you up. Now try breaking it down like that.
Mm-hmm.
See, less scary already.
Exactly, you got this. And speaking of feeling empowered, the next tip is all about what they call minimal pair power.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What's the superpower here?
Okay, so minimal pairs are words that differ by just one sound, like shit and sheep, or bat and bet. So by practicing these pairs, you're basically giving your ears a workout, training them to hear those subtle but crucial differences.
It's like learning to identify the different notes in a musical chord.
Yeah.
The more you practice,
Mm-hmm.
the sharper your ear becomes. But how do we actually practice minimal pairs?
Well, the guide suggests finding lists online or using pronunciation apps that are specifically designed for this. You can listen to the pairs, repeat them out loud, even try recording yourself to see how well you can distinguish the sounds.
Okay, I love that. It's fun and practical. It's like a game that helps you improve your pronunciation. Now, this next tip sounds intriguing. It's called mouth matters. Does this involve, strange facial exercises?
Not quite, but it's about being mindful of how our mouths actually form the sound. So it's all about coordinating those lips, tongue.
And jaw movement.
So we're not just,
Yeah.
letting the words fly out randomly. We're actually shaping them with our mouths.
Huh?
I see how that would make a difference.
Exactly. And one of the most helpful tips in the guide is to actually watch videos of native speakers. Pay attention to how they move their mouths, even better. Try practicing those sounds in front of a mirror.
Ooh, I'm all about a good mirror moment.
Yeah.
It's amazing what you notice about your own pronunciation when you can actually see yourself speaking. But what about the sounds themselves? English has so many of them.
Right. It can feel overwhelming. That's why the guide breaks it down into what they call vowel and consonant focus. It's like mastering the individual ingredients before you can create a delicious dish.
I love that. So instead of trying to pronounce a whole word perfectly from the get-go,
Yeah.
we're isolating those individual vowel and consonant sounds, like focusing on the short A in apple or the P sound in pen.
That's it. And once you start paying attention, to these individual sounds, you'll be amazed at how many you actually use every day without even realizing it.
It's like discovering a hidden language within the language. Okay, I'm ready for the next pronunciation power-up. What's next?
Well, this one might seem obvious, but the guide stresses its importance. Listen and learn. It's all about immersing yourself in the sounds of English, whether it's through movies, music, podcasts, or conversations with native speakers.
Yeah, like create a pronunciation playground for yourself. And there's this really cool technique that the guide mentions called shadowing. Basically, you speak along with the audio you're listening to, trying to match the speaker's pace and intonation.
Yeah, it's like having a personal pronunciation coach right there in your ear. It helps you internalize those subtle nuances of rhythm and intonation that can be hard to grasp just from reading or listening passively.
It's like you're absorbing the language.
Through osmosis. Yeah, I'm already thinking of all the podcasts. I want to start shadowing. That sounds like such a fun and effective way to practice.
Good.
But what about like the music of English? I've heard that intonation and stress can really make a difference.
Oh, you're absolutely right. And the guide has a whole section on intonation and stress, highlighting how crucial they are for clear and natural sounding speech. So it's not just about pronouncing the words correctly. It's about how we deliver them. Can you give us an example of how intonation and stress can change the meaning of a word?
Okay, think about the word present. Like if you're talking about a gift, you'd say presents, emphasizing the first syllable. But if you're talking about giving up a presentation, you'd say present, emphasizing the second syllable.
Wow, that's a subtle but significant difference. It's like adding punctuation marks to your spoken words. Intonation and stress are like the commas and exclamation points of speech. Okay, I'm ready for the next tip.
Well, this one might make some people nervous, but trust me, it's incredibly valuable. Record and refine. The guide suggests recording yourself speaking and then listening back to identify areas for improvement.
Oh, yeah. I think a lot of us have like a love-hate relationship with hearing our own voices, but it's so important for self-awareness. It's like having an instant replay. For your pronunciation?
Exactly. By recording ourselves, we can step back and become more objective listeners. You know, we can hear those subtle habits we might not even realize we have and pinpoint specific areas that we want to work on.
And the best part is, you don't need any fancy equipment. The voice memo app on your phone works perfectly. It's like having a personal pronunciation studio right in your pocket. But even with all these amazing tips, I think the guide's final point is perhaps the most important.
You're talking about patience and practice, right?
Because let's face it, mastering pronunciation takes time and effort. It's a journey, not a race.
Absolutely. The guide emphasizes setting realistic goals and celebrating small victories along the way. So instead of trying to master every sound overnight, focus on one specific area each week, like conquering the fifth sound or tackling those tricky vowel pairs.
It's like that old saying, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
And speaking of bites, I think we've given our listeners a lot to chew on in this first part of our deep dive. Welcome back, everyone, to our pronunciation power up. We left off talking about, patience and practice, which I know can be tough when you're like, eager to see results. But remember, even the most eloquent speakers, they started somewhere.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And the guide reminds us, consistency is key. Even just 15 minutes of focused practice a day can make a huge difference over time. It's like working out a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets.
Yeah, I love that analogy. And just like with physical exercise, it's important to find a routine that works for you and stick with it. So the guide suggests incorporating pronunciation practice into your daily life, maybe while you're getting ready in the morning or commuting to work.
Right. It's all about finding those little pockets of time and turning them into pronunciation power-ups. And the guy also emphasizes the importance of immersion, surround yourself with English as much as possible, whether through movies, music, podcasts, conversations with native speakers.
Yeah, think of it this way. How did you learn your first language? By being constantly exposed to it. So creating that pronunciation-rich environment is crucial for developing those intuitive language skills.
Totally. And remember that shadowing technique we talked about earlier?
Oh, yeah.
That's a fantastic way to actively engage with the language you're consuming. It's like having a pronunciation partner in your ear. You're not just passively listening. You're actually mimicking the speaker's rhythm, intonation, and pronunciation.
Exactly. And the beauty of it is no one even knows you're doing it. You can be walking down the street shadowing your favorite podcast.
It's like a secret mission.
Yep.
Now let's shift gears for a moment and talk about the purpose of all this pronunciation practice. Is it just about sounding like a news anchor, or mimicking a specific accent?
That's a great question. And the guide actually addresses this directly. It emphasizes that. The ultimate goal of pronunciation. It's not to achieve some idealized accent, but to communicate effectively. It's about making sure your message is understood, clearly and confidently.
So it's not about erasing your individuality or striving for some unattainable level of perfect pronunciation. It's about connection and clarity.
Precisely. And remember, effective communication is a two-way street. It's not just about how we speak, but also how we listen. So the guide encourages us to pay attention to the pronunciation of others, not to judge or criticize, but to learn and appreciate the diversity of spoken English.
Right. Yeah, that's such an important point. We can learn so much from each other's accents and pronunciation styles. It's all part of the beautiful tapestry of the English language.
Before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, let's take a moment to recap some of the key takeaways so far. We talked about the importance of focusing on sounds rather than spelling, breaking down those intimidating long words into manageable syllables, and mastering those tricky minimal pairs.
Yeah.
We also highlighted the power of mouth movements, the importance of mastering those individual vowel and consonant sounds, and the magic of listening to and mimicking native speakers through immersion techniques like shadowing.
And let's not forget the music of English. Intonation and stress, those subtle but powerful tools that can really add nuance and clarity to our speech.
Absolutely.
And of course, the golden rule of language learning. Patience and practice. It's a journey, not a destination.
Yeah. But before we send you off on your pronunciation adventures, we have one final thought-provoking point to discuss in the last part of our deep dive.
All right, pronunciation adventures, we're back for the final part of our deep dive. I hope you're feeling energized and ready to put all these amazing tips into practice.
I'm excited to see what you all achieve, because remember, even small improvements can make such a big difference in how you feel about your spoken English.
Yeah, and you know what? Speaking of feeling good, the guide ends on a note that I think is so important. Pronunciation is an ongoing journey. It's not a destination.
I couldn't agree more. There will always be new sounds to explore, new accents to encounter, new challenges to embrace, It's all part of the fun of language learning. It's like we're all on this awesome pronunciation adventure together. So instead of getting bogged down by perfectionism, let's focus on enjoying the process and seeing every challenge as an opportunity to grow.
I love that.
Okay, so before we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with a little challenge. Remember that word that used to trip you up? The one that made you stumble and mumble? Well, now is your chance to face it head on.
Yeah.
Choose that word. Break it down into syllables. Practice those sounds in front of the mirror. And then use it in a sentence.
I love it.
You'll be amazed at how empowering it feels to overcome those pronunciation hurdles.
Totally.
It's like leveling up your language skills. So go out there and speak your heart out. With clarity and confidence, the world is waiting to hear your voice.
That's right.
That's all for today's deep dive. Thanks for joining us.
See you next time.